Hello friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. In today's video, I'm going to be continuing working in my 2021 Project Life album. This week I am working on week 30, so this would have been July 26th through August 1st. I pulled out my Ali Edwards Ampersand story kit to use for my storytelling this week. And most of the photos, or the major events that happened in week 30, was a trip that my family took to North Carolina to go see my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and meet our niece for the very first time. So what I'm going to do is get everything laid out here on the table, and I will put you on fast forward as I get everything arranged and embellished and all of that good stuff. And then once I have the layout done, we will slow back down to finish out the video for today. A couple things that I will mention. I have already printed out some of my journaling on the journaling cards, which I do have a tutorial for this, and it's linked in the description box down below. I also printed a couple of my journaling cards on vellum with the intention to layer them on top of some of the decorative cards. And I did this because I didn't want to cover up the beautiful cards. I wanted to still be able to see them and still have some of that color shining through. So I do have a couple of these on vellum in order to achieve that look. And I think that's it. So let's go ahead, get you on fast forward, and get to work on this layout. Jumping into this layout, first I'm going to go ahead and set most of the supplies to the side there and go ahead and cut apart my 3x4 photos. When I'm working in Project Life, I typically like to use all of the configurations that have the 3x4 and the 4x6 photos, but in order to print my 3x4 photos, all I do is add 2 of them to a 4x6 canvas and then print that off here on my home printer. But that's why they look like this when I get them over to my desk. This week is going to be really heavy on the 3x4 photos as well, because we're going on the back side of a page where I had a lot of photos that I had taken during the week. So what I had done last week was to do a full page that was the 3x4 photos, which I believe is 12 to a page. And so since I'm working on the back side of that, I made sure to print off a bunch of photos from this week as well, which was super easy to do since we actually went on vacation this week. So again, I just had a ton of photos to include. Now these ones that I'm trimming out right here are smaller. I want to say that those are 2.5 by 2.5 inches. They might, I'm not 100% sure of that, but those I'm going to combine and put on one of the 4x6 journaling cards. And the last thing I needed to do before I could set this out was to take the repeated "and" card there, and I cut it in half so I could use the pattern card as a title card, which I'll build here in a little bit with some labels and some other embellishments. The rest of that "and" card I'm going to set aside, and that's just going to go into my stash for another time. Here is where I'm going to start building out my layout and placing things where I want them to go. A lot of this is designed on the computer before I ever print anything off. That way I know that I'm printing only the photos that I need, and I also know exactly where everything is going to go. It makes this whole process so much easier. And then you can see also how the vellum pieces are going to look on top of the 2 ampersand cards, which I totally love the way that that looks. Now this idea here is something that I got from Morgan Beal, who did the classroom content for the "and" story class. And in her content, she did a week of Project Life and showing how to use the supplies for Project Life. I loved that she took those story title cards that have, 2 words with an ampersand in the middle, and she used those on a couple of her photos and just put them along the edges of the photo. I love the way that that looked, so I'm actually going to do that with all of my remaining title cards. Now that I am basically done creating all of my layouts for Story Kit Crush for the ampersand kit, I did know, exactly which ones I was going to have left, so I just used up all of the rest of them. For this card, I want to layer up the 2 smaller square photos, and I actually wanted them to go underneath that circle portion below the ampersand. I first tried to take a circle punch, which I believe is just a 1-inch circle punch, and to see if I could get the angle right based on where I punched it. But it wasn't quite right, and then I was worried that if I kept trying, it would end up looking kind of funky. So instead, I took a craft knife and just trimmed out around the circle portion so I could tuck the photos right underneath the flap. Then to help hold the flap down, what I will do, because at first I'm like, well, maybe I can tape the underside of it, but it was too hard to get to it. So you can see I'm kind of fumbling around with how am I going to do this. So instead what I do is flip it over. I'm going to grab some washi tape and I'm just going to tape down the cut portion. So that way it all stays nice and together and I don't have to worry about it. So that is how that card is going to come together. And now you'll see actually one other one that I'm going to change before we get into the story card portion. This one right here says, and still I rise. And I didn't really have a story that pertained to that card necessarily, but I did really like the way that it was half green and half white. So I printed my journaling on the green part. And then I just cut off the white part and turned it around, and then I will washi tape it on the back, and I'm going to add one of those felt ampersands to the top. So it just alters that card to make it work for me so I can still take advantage of the color without having to try and manufacture a story that would work for that card. I don't want to do that. So that one worked out great. And then it also doesn't go into my stash. It just gets used up. So here is where I'm going to start putting on these story cards. For the vellum, what I wanted to do was to use my tiny attacher to staple that on the top and the bottom of the card. For this one though, I wanted to add the title across the top portion. So I first stuck that down and then I did the staple right at the top. That way I didn't have to accidentally staple too far down and then have to figure out how to get the story card on top of that. It just all worked out totally fine. And then, I'm going to keep doing this with all of my photos. So some of them will go vertical, some of them will go horizontal. It just depends where the white space is in the photo itself. And I tried to match up the titles as best I could with the different photos. So I've got, You and Me is on the photo of Aaron and my son. Jonah, I've got Brave and Scared on the photo of Jonah getting his hair cut. I've got Beauty and Mess on the photo of our family pre-haircut. I've got Beginning and End for the photo of us leaving for our vacation, Highs and Lows for the photo of Izzy going to the doctor. Just trying to do the best I could to make them make sense for the photos that they were on. And I also had one remaining plastic ampersand, so just a couple of random ampersands left. I've got the felt one that I'm going to put on this card by stapling it on. I've got the plastic one that I stapled on the photo of Aaron and Jonah in the restaurant. And then I've got a chipboard one that I'm going to put in my title card. So it just, places those around the layout there. It's also nice that there are 3 of them because it gives me my rule of 3s and they're in a triangle on the page. So we have the visual triangle, which totally makes this feel cohesive and put together. So for the photos and the stories that I selected for this week, the majority of them came from the vacation that we went on because that was the majority of our week. I do have a picture of Izzy at the doctor's office. She just had a well visit checkup and that was just part of our week this week. And then I've got a couple pictures from our family getting our hair cut. So we all had hair appointments and everybody had a pretty drastic change. So I've got the family before picture, I've got the family after picture, and then I have the picture of Jonah specifically because it was his very first real haircut that he's ever had. So that one was a special picture for this week. Then I've got some pictures from meeting our baby niece. I've got a picture from the kids museum that we went to. That's the one of Aaron and Jonah making donuts. I have one from a brewery that we went and visited in North Carolina. One from our car ride since we did drive from Michigan to North Carolina. So it was about 14 to 16 hours. And then I also have a picture of my prepped traveler's notebook, which I brought with me for documenting the trip during the trip. So lots of really, really awesome memories and photos to document this time around. For my title card, what I did is I took one of the label stickers from the Great Outdoors collection. There was one that had a dark green oval, so I added that into the middle of the repeated and card. I knew I wanted to add the chipboard ampersand in the middle of that and have my dates on the top and the bottom. Originally, I added my date stamping to the top and the bottom only, trying to leave a white space for the ampersand to go in, but I accidentally stamped it a little bit too close, so the ampersand covered it up. What I did to fix that is I used the roller date stamp, and I just repeat stamped with second and third generation stamping the first day of the week and the last day of the week. When I get to the end of this video and we're wrapping everything up, you'll hear me say that it's not really my favorite title card, that there's something about it that I didn't quite like. But the funny thing is now that I'm voicing this over a couple weeks later, I actually really, really love that title card and would totally do that again. So it's just funny how things turn out like that. Well, friends, that completes my spread for this week. I really, really love how all of those title cards became embellishments for many of my photos here. I think that it helps to tie all of the colors in from the kit that I use, the ampersand story kit, and add a little bit more context or title type of story to each of the photos as well. I think, it was just really fun. My title card here turned out okay. It's not my favorite, but I think that by adding the layered date stamping on there, I'll hold it up here so you guys can see it. I think by adding that on there, it does help to point out the two different dates. You can see the 26th of July and you can see the 1st of August. So that did help because that original first stamp was right in the wrong spot. I needed it to be a little bit higher and this one maybe to be a little bit lower to give me that white space in the middle. So, it just goes to show that if you mess up, and I'm going to say that in quotation marks, if you mess up or don't do something perfectly how you see it in your head, there's always ways to work around that and come up with a different design concept off of, or using your mistake as the jumping off point to create something that is still really nice. So even though, it's not what I intended, I still really like how it turned out. All right, friends. Well, that is going to be it for me for today. I am going to be back again on Friday with the Story Kit Crush project, and then again next week with Project Life on Wednesday. If you enjoyed seeing how this one came together, I would love a thumbs up on this video down below. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see all of my future crafty videos as well. All right, friends. Well, until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, friends.